Hi everyone and welcome back to Let's Talk People Development. As always, I'm here with Danny and today we come to you, if you're watching this on YouTube, from the not so sunny Lisbon.
No, it's a bit grey, but it's still very nice nonetheless.
Absolutely. And where we are currently sat, if you can hear some water running in the background, we're sat on a rooftop terrace with a pool. If you hear planes going on in the background, we're right in the flight path. What relevance does our presence here on a rooftop terrace in Lisbon have to do with the podcast? Nothing. We're here in Lisbon and we thought, well, it'd be quite cool to do it.
Yeah.
Apart from that, it has very little to do with it, right?
Yeah, I think so. But I do. But I also think that today's subject kind of relates in some way to what we're doing in Lisbon. So maybe we'll talk a bit about that as time goes by.
Yeah, that's fair. And also you get to tick this off the list because when we set up to re-establish the podcast, you had grand ideas of us flying all over the world.
Location-based podcast recording. We're in the Stephen Bartlett territory here. You know, fancy offices in New York, rooftop terraces in Portugal.
It's a start.
It's a start.
Tick.
It's a start.
So today's subject is stop selling, start listening.
Indeed.
Okay, and we, as you quite rightly said, are here to talk to everybody about our approach, I guess, to selling, because we're here for a sales event. It's our main event of the year. We get an opportunity to meet great people in our world of people development, nerd out a little bit. But actually, that's kind of starts with our approach, doesn't it? That we just want to get into it and meet great people, learn things from them. But we'll come on to that later. Yeah. Danny, you're very passionate about this subject, and actually you've done quite a lot of deep research into the psychology and history behind selling, haven't you?
Yeah, and I find it fascinating. You know, it's something that it's one of the oldest, if you like, professions in humankind is selling. You know, if it goes right back to, hundreds and hundreds of years ago, before there was currency, and people would have exchanged goods for goods. So, if you was a farmer and you grew potatoes, and I was a farmer and I grew tomatoes, and I had too many tomatoes, and we'd swap, that was kind of really where the early evidence of trade came from. But of course, the moment you brought currency into the mix, the concept of the hunter-farmer model, which most people are familiar with, which is whereby you're either the sort of person that kind of goes out and gets a vast amount of things and then tries to push it onto other people, or you're the person that produces or makes it and you make your money that way. But currency enabled this to sort of take place. But it wasn't until the mid-1920s, much, much later, before anybody kind of delved into the psychology of selling. In fact, there was a fantastic book written, although very much of its time in the mid-1920s, called The Psychology of Selling. And it unpacked the principles of what happens between human beings. Dan Pink always talks about to sell is human. It's like in all of us, whether you're a salesperson or you're selling yourself to your employer for a job, or you're selling yourself to your partner in a first date, we have a natural ability to sell. Yet some people we know do it better perhaps than others. Yeah. Now, I coin that phrase better, maybe have a better success than others. And fast forward that to sort of more modern times, so mid-1970s was the next real sort of evolution of the sales journey. We started to look at solution selling because, by the 70s there was so much competition in the marketplace in all industries that companies started to solution sell, bundle stuff together, supermarkets selling white goods or opticians, or these days mobile phones and currency, to try and bring more opportunity. But it wasn't until probably the last 10 years that people have said, are we doing this right? Are we going about it in the right way? Because we're all quite familiar with the process when we're being sold to.
Well, I think that's the most important part for me. When you look at any type of steps-based selling, as a consumer, everybody knows when they're being sold to. Yeah. So no longer can you, I believe, want to truly engage your future customers, can you focus on those steps because customers know what's happening to them. Yeah. So you're learning what customers already know. So you're just going to repeat the same behaviors. So there's almost a low bar set because right, here we are, bit of rapport building, are we? Trying to find a familiar connection, which is obviously important.
Yes, yeah, they're important, but
they've got to be done different.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, all you're going to ever do is meet their expectations. But is that what you want to, if you really want to encapsulate a conversation and stimulate opportunity in that conversation, are you going to do that by simply meeting their expectations? You have to exceed it, right?
Well, absolutely. And also, we talk there about differentiation. We're often about, the challenge is, and if you think about the principle of solution selling, it was to try and differentiate through products and services.
Yes.
I sell this product, but if I can sell you these products as well, or these services as well, then it become more attractive to my buyer. But that probably isn't enough. Differentiation has to come from something else. And the best piece of differentiation is us, human beings, people, because we are truly unique. And yet when you're following them processes, it can be a bit robotic.
Yeah.
It can be a little bit samey. In fact, if you ever bought a sofa or a car or any of those types of things, you go from one place to the next and you'll probably get a relatively similar experience. And yet there's a real human being stood in front of you that could be the difference between it being a fantastic experience and just an okay one.
Absolutely. And I think we think about the title, Stop Selling, Start Listening. Let's not be misled by that statement of, okay, ask some great questions.
Yes.
It's so much deeper than that. In fact, our view and our focus when we're out there developing others, but also what we're attempting to do, what we try and do every single time, is what you're listening for. Because if you listen for the right things, actually what you're doing is being genuinely authentic, because you've got to explore the world in which they operate, and you've got to really get behind that. And that's where sometimes the fear is for me, is because what if I unravel a load of things that I don't have the answers to? Well, that's maybe a subject for a different day, because does that person expect you to have all the answers?
So being almost, isn't it?
It's actually, there's power and authenticity in simply going, I don't have the answers to the challenges or challenges you face or opportunities you're looking for. But most importantly, if you're listening for the right things, and they are wearing the customer's shoes, stepping into their world, understanding the challenges, the opportunities, their customers, their clients, however they call it, their relationships, their marketplace, their industry. You're not expected to know all of it for them, but if you just start by trying to immerse yourself in that, what you're trying to inevitably do, if we step away from that steps-based selling, is instead of looking for things to funnel through almost your product, let me ask a load of questions
that lead you directly to
my product, right? So that's where ask great questions, which will lead you to our product. I don't think that's the way.
No. Well, because also, if I've got a limitation in my product or my service, I'm going to avoid questions about that. Because I can't really deliver that. So therefore, I'm not going to take you down that route. But actually, is that not doing the person you're talking to a disjustice in some way? Stephen Covey, his was seek first to understand before being understood.
Yeah.
It was a principle of that most of the information you need is probably somewhere in the conversation you're having. But if you're not listening for it, you're going to miss it, because you're fixated on, let's face it, as human beings often are, I'm fixated on what I want to say next rather than necessarily what you're saying in the process.
And maybe that's a comfort zone as well.
Could be.
Right?
Could be.
If I'm able to truly understand my products and services and solutions, and that's where I can always come back to, that's the safety. In fact, you've got to become uncomfortable. You've got to become comfortable with being sat there uncomfortable.
That's right. Comfortably uncomfortable is what it is, isn't it?
And stop trying to pinpoint certain things that target them back to your product, and actually start understanding their world so that you can allow them to become better buyers. So we often focus more on understanding the buying cycle, not the sales cycle.
Yes.
And that's what we mean in the statement, stop selling, start listening. Start listening to them in order to understand their world, in order to help them buy what they need to buy. And you hope within that, your solution is there. But also, how much power is in it, is in that relationship that you're building when you go, we're not right for you.
Yeah. Well, I think that's where, I think back to, I look over the last few years for us, and I think, back to how we worked together for years and how we used to work, was probably quite single-minded in lots of ways in the way we did things. And one of the things that we've promoted, and you talk about more than anybody, and the team has become centered around, is curiosity.
Yeah.
It's like inquisitiveness. It's just like, you know, when somebody's chatting, they're going, oh, I've got a problem with, instead of thinking, oh, how can I fix that problem? And become curious. Wow, why does that exist? How does that exist? What's happened? What have you tried? What's worked? Just be curious rather than trying to find an answer. And in that, you know, that curiosity, that fascination, I think makes something really, really interesting. When it's interesting, you become interested, and therefore you have the opportunity then to go, hey, look, you know, I don't know the answer necessarily, but here's my thoughts, here's my opinions, here's my views or experience. And I think that whenever I look back over great conversations, they've often been centered around some sort of curiosity, inquisitiveness, and not routine and, dare I say it, a bit boring, you know, which is back to the point of following a process, and it sounds very procedural.
I mean, let's think about the environment we're going to step into over the next couple of days. The business equivalent of speed dating.
Yes, that's exactly it.
30 minutes.
Yeah.
What on earth, particularly in our world being a solutions world, we don't have a product to just sell.
Yeah.
What on earth can we do in 30 minutes other than try and understand as much as we possibly can?
Yeah.
Right? So therefore, we've had it before. People will say, right, tell us about what you do. And immediately our first response will be, absolutely we can. And if that's what you're here to do, we will fulfill that need that you have. But in order for us to just shape that a little bit, give you a bit more context, create a little bit of alignment, could we ask a few questions first?
Absolutely.
The opposite of that, and obviously I'm now stepping out of our world, is my most recent example of the complete opposite was when somebody called me, and you know, call center sales, tough world.
Yeah,
I couldn't do it.
No, absolutely, nor me.
No way. So, you know, hats off to anybody that steps into that world and does it. But clearly this individual had been prepped in a certain way, and they were driving a particular incentive in the mortgage market. Okay, so I get a call about my mortgage, and they turned around and they said, look, we've had some stuff come up that suggests that you could potentially benefit from some cost savings aligned to your mortgage. Brilliant. Thanks very much. What do you want to know? Okay, so who do you currently have your mortgage with? That's not being curious.
No,
because the problem is they've already made a statement that they've identified.
Yeah.
They have already.
How can they possibly identify anything without knowing those things?
Yeah, and I'm never ever rude to people on the phone. I actually simply just try and be as kind and as decent as I can. And I did have to say, look, I'm just going to have to stop you there, right? I'm a bit confused. Your opening statement says you've identified some potential savings in my mortgage, but you're now asking me who I have my mortgage with. What do you know about my mortgage? Well, actually, I don't know that yet. I need to know that information. Well, actually, knowing that information, and I get why that individual would need the information, but unfortunately, in order to get the hook, they've started right in the wrong place. I have pre-identified a solution for you, even though I know nothing about you, your life, your financial situation. I don't even know your mortgage that I'm suggesting. How on earth can people still believe that consumers or customers are really, and genuinely, I don't mean this to be, you know, in any way a slight on this individual, because hopefully I'm being as kind as I can. How on earth can they think that works?
Yeah, and I think it's because that, you know, often, and probably go back to some of those older sales type thinking, was that play the numbers game. Yeah, that was, you know, I mean, I've, you know, in different parts of my career worked in, you know, contact centers and even high streets and those type of things. And the numbers game principle is what you're almost going after is, well, okay, if I can, you know, hit loads and loads and loads of people, maybe somebody isn't quite as savvy and listens to that statement as well as you did, and I caught them off guard, and therefore they give away a bit of information, and then I can build on that, and then I can then potentially offer them something that's got some savings. They play that numbers game. I remember working in a contact center where it was 250 to 1, so they would make 250 outbound calls. Not all as pleasant and polite as you were, by the way. Some of these people not being kind at all to them over the phone, but they knew that, roughly speaking, in every 250, they'd get one that would go, oh yeah, I'm interested, and they'd be curious. One, we can't afford to do that in our business. I wouldn't have the time. B, actually, I think we're doing a disjustice to ourselves, a disjustice to our business, and also, more importantly, a disjustice to the person that's sat in front of us, because we have an obligation there to make a bit more of a conscious effort to go, actually, what do I do to make sure this is as valuable for us? Because it is got to be valuable for us, of course, but also valuable to the customer as well, or the potential customer, or the conversation, or whatever it may be.
I totally agree. And to go back to that individual, if anybody is in a call center, they'll be screaming, I have 3-4 minute window to get call.
I need time.
I have targets. I'm not talking about you as individuals, right? The problem is further up the line, is the 250 to 1.
Yeah.
In
well, that's
reality,
the place we operate in, typically as a business. We're trying to put in place solutions typically to help them rather than the actual person themselves.
And for me, to be really critical, it's the easy way to do it. Or some people will say, well, it's really, really bloody hard. No, it's the easy way in terms of structure and setup, because then the development is low, the investment in those people. It's the fastest way to get people in, because there's high churn.
But I think a report.
But I think it's I think it's lazy.
Yeah, I do.
And I hate to be as direct, but I do. I think if you and I will both this will be the least all year that we'll use our laptops.
Yes.
They don't even leave them back. Because what on earth have we got in our laptop that we can pre-show someone, other than maybe they might say, have you got any supporting materials? But that's on invite only. Yeah. And actually it'll be a cam, but do we really want to be looking at a screen right now? Or do we want to be having a conversation? Yeah. And I think this is the point. To help customers become better buyers, what we need to do is slow down to speed up.
Yes.
Okay. Every 30-minute conversation we have this week is not about finding a solution. It's impossible. We're talking about multi-year development programs that we're shaping. But why can't that also be applied to other areas in terms of products and services in the consumer market?
Yeah, and I find that's a bit where this gets really, really, really interesting, because, you kind of, everything about closing the deal, right? That's what sales is often about, and people are targeted for the here and now. Businesses measure performance by the here and now, but that then fosters that kind of behavior, which is, quick burn through, lots and lots and lots of information. And I can't help but think that because that doesn't work in our world, so maybe we're privileged and we've just got this really fortunate base that is, the long game is a much better world for us to operate in, because we don't, we're not right for everybody, for starters, and we're not going to find that out in half an hour. We're going to find that out through the unpacking of things. But if I'm working in a sofa shop or selling a car, my window is shorter, so I do get that. But I think your slow down, speed up bit is the bit for me, is when we take that step back and we, instead of kind of getting, these are all things I need to say, and I go more down the route of, let me just listen for a bit. You probably won't need to say anywhere near as much. You won't need to ask as many questions, because most of the information you need is already there. And if you're genuinely listening, what frustrates me in all of this is when you say something to somebody and they then ask you a question. Yeah. And I've already told you the answer to that, but you weren't listening because you were so fixated on the question you were going to ask me, you missed it. That, to me, is like, you're missing so many obvious, easy opportunities. I'm not saying any of that's going to change the outcome, by the way, right? I'm just saying that, looking at it more practically speaking, if you want to be different, then you have to be different in everything you do. And a process is designed to be the same. It's not designed to be different.
100%. And I think there's a big thing for me in, we talk about listening. Maybe had we looked at it a different way, is it stop selling, start learning? Yeah. If you said that, I'm big on the curiosity thing, I love the next 2 days. I don't feel pressure, because we've got maybe a 50-50 split on similar industries we've worked in, or whether we haven't.
Yes.
So 50% of them, we've never worked in their industry. And therefore, my God, I've got to learn about their industry, right? The others, we've got 20 opportunities to learn about 20 new businesses. So even those industries that we've worked in could easily start with, well, we've worked in hospitality, or we've worked in betting and gaming, and therefore I know exactly what I need to say to you. No, I don't, because your culture is different, your people are different, your challenges are different.
Absolutely, where they are in their overall business process journey, I suppose. I know you're calling that a terrible word, but wherever they are will be different, and therefore their needs will be different, and what they've tried and done will be different. So, yeah, you know, I think part of the problem is if you treat everybody the same, it's going to be a small percentage of the times that you're right and a larger percentage of the times that you're wrong, I would think.
And hey, look, there's a nice link there in terms of our solution. If we talk about what we have and therefore what we try and match up to what people need, we talk about leading sales. Yeah. And if we talk about leadership development and we talk about how you best engage people and we talk about behavioral economics, that is about the difference between treating everybody the same and treating everybody
100%.
uniquely.
And uniquely is it. Every single person differently.
So therefore, to lead sales, you must make sure that every conversation is entirely unique.
Yes.
And that's scary, right? And it is, because there will be moments where tomorrow and the day after, we might be both sat there at the same time thinking, this is complex.
Yes.
I don't know whether I have any ideas or all of the things they've suggested that they've done would be what we would do. And that's where the conversation has you have a deep opportunity there to show trust and authenticity, right? Where you can go, okay, right, I don't have any answers. What do I do next? I'm going to get the laptop out and I'm just going to pitch because it's just going to be easier because I don't have any answers. Or go, bloody hell, that is a sticky situation you're in there. I'll be honest, I ain't got a clue. It may not be the response they're looking for, but it might be the one they went, well, at least I'm not going out of my mind. Yeah. I'm so glad that someone has not just said to me, I know what you need to do. What, in 30 minutes, you managed to fix what I've been trying to fix for the last 4 years in my role as a senior professional in the people development world. Wow.
You use the word there, easy. And earlier on in that, you use the word difficult or hard work. And I think everything we've talked about in this, it is harder because you got to be conscious, you got to be present.
Yeah,
you know, listening's tough, right? It's really difficult to do because our brains are not particularly good at it. You know, we kind of get distracted. I think, you know, it's hard work and to be unique every time means I have to be all those things at their best, at their absolute best. My best attentiveness, my best present, my best whatever it may be, but the benefit of that means that you have better conversations, you build better relationships, and hopefully that leads to better outcomes.
Absolutely. And again, that human to human piece is absolutely about starting with some of those real principles that allow you to take the pressure off, right? So first and foremost, stop selling, start listening. What are we talking about here? First of all, you don't expect to have all the answers, right? And don't try and be the one that solves all of the problems. They've been doing it a long, long time. So unless you are a absolute genius and a whiz, there's a good chance that they're going to...
Probably knows more about their business than you know about it, for sure.
And therefore you need to utilize their knowledge in order to be the best at what you can do to help them become better buyers. Take the pressure off, slow down to speed up. Be curious and think about it as a learning opportunity because you will be better off for it and so will they. And enjoy it.
Yes.
Right? Go into that moment, go into those conversations enjoying. And the final one that I would say is your walkaway position. Danny, tomorrow, if someone comes to us at the end of a very long day, we have 16 meetings tomorrow and then the remainder on Friday or something like that. So we'll be feeling it at the end of the day. We're human beings. But imagine someone comes up to us towards the end of the day and you can just clearly see signs of overwhelm.
Yes.
What would we do in that moment? Would we proceed or would we?
Absolutely. Say, hey, look, you know, is this right now? Is this good for you now? Are you done? And they go, I'm done. Okay, should we just hook up next week and just have a conversation then?
We'll put it in the diary.
And we'll do that. Slow down, speed up is exactly what that's about. I think for me, my summary from all this is to be interesting, you've got to be interested. And that's what it's all about, right? Relationships are built on a common ground, an interest in each other. And so if you want to be interesting, you've got to first be interested in what's going on around you. And if you're not observing all of those things, such as what you just described, then it's going to be really difficult to be different if you've not noticed the differences between that person and the person you spoke to beforehand, and so on and so forth. And I think it's all in front of you. You've got to be looking for it.
Stop selling, start listening, start learning, start understanding, and start enjoying. I think there's more enjoyment in this way of creating those great connections and ultimately, yes, selling, but helping people buy.
Long term, long term.
Love it. Danny, right, we've got a busy few days ahead. Thank you to everyone for listening. The sun was breaking out then, but it's gone again. We will see you again in a few weeks, but as always, thank you for listening.
Yeah, good to see you. Bye.